All right, finna go ahead and get it started. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of a Champ podcast. For today's episode 159, we're going to be discussing an interesting topic for sure, I'd say the least. Now, this is going to be a topic that not a lot of people are going to exactly expect, but nonetheless, I still want to give the people the game. Uh, for today's episode, we're going to be discussing what I believe to be one of the most essential skills when it comes to self improvement, right? Now, this is going to be a skill that I believe even if you are in self improvement, you are working on yourself, you're probably not doing this, and you probably should be doing this. And for me personally, I've seen some of the most biggest breakthroughs and benefits in my own personal life just by doing this one habit. Let's call it that. So for this is going to be writing. Now this is going to be writing in any way that you want, whether this is journaling, whether this is journaling literally anything. This could literally be your day, or like I said, literally anything. Maybe you're writing down your goals, but nonetheless, I believe the most successful people and the most well articulated people all write to an extent, whether they write books, whether they write in their journal, whatever it is, right? They write, and that skill, it needs to be developed and can be only developed through actually doing it. And that's another thing that doesn't get mentioned that much, because a lot of people get turned off because not everybody wants to sit down and journal, or like sit down and you know actually be in the present moment, and that's completely fine. Um, but nonetheless, it's super key when it comes to expanding your own ideas and your own personal thoughts and things like that. And I do believe that not a lot of people truly give it the credit that it truly deserves, or at least say it in the most fun way possible. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and talk about it on today's podcast. A few things I want to mention before I actually go ahead and get it started. Make sure you go and follow me on TikTok, Rumble, and Twitch as well. All Life of a Champ podcasts on all those. The link should be in the description. So if you do want to go ahead and subscribe or follow me on those, make sure you go ahead and do that for sure. Other than that, make sure you go ahead and leave a like on my YouTube shorts as well as my YouTube clips. If you can't catch a full podcast, or for whatever reason don't want to watch it live, that's going to be your best bet. You're going to be able to see sample sizes of the podcast that are going to be in your favor. That's all I'm gonna say, man. Like I say, you go ahead and analyze it for what you would like, but nonetheless, they're going to be somewhat interesting and they're going to be somewhat informative as well. So if you resonate with that, then that's going to be your best bet for sure. GDP, appreciate for stopping by. So I'm gonna get it started, man. Like I said, if you're in the chat, also let me know. If you're in the Twitch chat, also let me know as well. I will be checking the Twitch chat as well. So to get it started, like I said, one of the most important self improvement skills, in my opinion, is going to be writing. Right, writing to me is one of the most productive things and most productive habits if done correctly. Right, it can transcend. It can be one of these keystone habits like reading that can transcend your ideas and be able to put it in a way where you can actually refer back to what you actually write. And of course, like I said, a lot of these things, the school unfortunately ruined a lot of these things for a lot of us, right? Like I said, I'm not the type of person that when I was in school, when we were taking notes in class, right, to refer back to my notes. But if the note actually mattered to your life and didn't matter only in that hour of your day, hopefully it can bring you some utility. So that is exactly what has happened to me personally, right? The reason why I stress writing to be one of the most important things that you can potentially do on a day to day basis is because not only are you writing within the moment, but you're also allowing your ideas to be put in a place where you can refer back to. And when you refer back to it, you can actually add more to that idea or add more into your mind just by reviewing that idea. And I feel like not a lot of people talk about that enough. And of course, like I said, with school it turned me off for sure. That's why I stayed away from reading and writing for the longest time, because school literally ruined that for me. Um, but by writing, it's gonna allow you to analyze truly how you think, and you'll see if you have any good ideas or not based off of you writing. And of course, I very rarely actually like write. Right? When I say write, I mean getting your your ideas in your head into the physical world. That's what when I say writing, that's what that is to me. So I do it through notes on my phone, right? It's still notes technically. So that's what I would personally recommend. Like I said, if you can sit down and write, that also does something different to your brain, which is going to allow you to remember. But quite frankly, I like to write down notes where I can refer back to them literally anywhere in the entire world. So that is why I have decided to do it on my phone. Um, but yeah, but just by all the things that I had mentioned already, that's going to bring you plenty of utility. So whether you choose to do it or not, that's up to you, right? Um, Yeah, and another thing I like, and this is kind of what I'm doing with this podcast as well, right? If you begin to write, and you obviously it'll keep track of the day and stuff like that, right? You're going to be able to refer back, let's just say 10 years from now. You're going to be able to refer back and say, what was I thinking at this time? What was my mind like? What were my ideas like? What was the struggle that I was going through, which I believe all these things should be written down. You're going to be able to refer back to these things. That's going to give you that nostalgic feeling that's going to be of utility, hopefully. And for me with this podcast, right, I'm going to be able to look back 10 years from now and say, oh, I wonder what Champ was thinking about. Let's just say, when he was 20, right? I'm going to be able to refer back to that because I have essentially did a video note to my future self, right? And I feel like I said, a lot of people can truly benefit from that because that'll allow you to analyze the way that you've been thinking to see if you've been on the right track or to see if you haven't been on the right track. So, like I said, with that alone, there's going to be plenty of utility that I've already discussed, right? If you guys have any questions or comments regarding anything, or maybe even the specific topic that we're talking about today, definitely leave it in the comments for sure. Yeah, and one thing I want to mention with this as well, this is why I do believe, and this is why even in my own personal life, I've stressed to people for them to go ahead and write, right? I feel like personally, a lot of people have a lot of really good ideas and good thoughts, right? But they don't bring them into the world via writing, of course. They just don't. There's a lot of good ideas and good thoughts that have been had by plenty of people within the past, right? But a lot of those ideas turn to trash. A lot of those thoughts turn to trash, right? Because they're not brought into the real world. So like I said, if you're a person that has plenty of great ideas but you don't write down any of them, then you're just like everybody else. Or you could be a person who writes them down, maybe actually does something with that, and then you can build something of yourself with that, right? That is the personal route that I have chosen to do. I've recognized time and time again that I've had some what I believe to be genius level ideas that have came to me, given my inputs that I've been giving myself, and also just being a receiver of the universe as well. Um, but everybody is a receiver of the universe, right? If you believe it, it will exist. With that being said, um, write these things down, right? I like I said, I stress this to my own personal friends. I've had a lot of good intellectual conversations with a lot of my friends, and I stress to them all the time, hey, there's a lot of good ideas that we've had within conversation, a lot of ideas that you've came up with through conversation. Now imagine if you were able to just take your ideas that you have in your brain and bring them to the real world. Like that's why I stress that because dude, how many people in your life right now, you watching this right now, how many people in your life actually write down their ideas? When they have an idea, when they have the slightest bit of genius that comes into their mind, if any at all, do they write it down? Or do they just let it go? Here's the thing. I'm gonna be a person that's always going to stress this because like I said, I've seen it benefit my life personally so many times. And I'm gonna give you some of the examples of things that I have written down that I've believed to be um, things that have helped me throughout my self improvement journey. And like I said, writing is just one of those things that I can't stress enough. That could literally change your life for sure. Um, one thing I want to say with this as well is like you don't have to make this a specific habit that you do every single day, right? That's one thing I want to mention for sure because I don't write every single day. But what I do, and this is something I'm gonna recommend for everybody to go ahead and do, whenever you have an idea that's truly great, just write it down quickly. Whether this is maybe you can even send it as a text to somebody, but just put it down so you can refer back to it later. That's for sure. Um, and like I said, I do this personally when I have like a spontaneous idea, or let's just say I for whatever reason get into a natural flow state where I'm just thinking of constant ideas. That is gonna be my moment where whatever, regardless of whatever I'm doing, that is probably the most important thing that I can be doing at that time. So therefore, that's what I'll go ahead and do. And like I said, I'm sure you watching this right now have had good ideas, maybe that you've never even heard anybody say, right? But if you just leave it as a thought within your head, thoughts come and go. That good idea is gonna come and go, right? You might not be able to ever have that idea ever. You might not ever be able to have something that triggers that idea again, right? And that's a tragic thing right there. Or you could do what I do and do what I would recommend for you guys to go ahead and do and actually write these things down, right? Like I said, the referring back to it is just so key. It's just so key. And like I said, there's plenty of ideas that you could possibly write down, um, that truly have some utility within your life, right? Me personally, I have over 1,000 notes that I've written down, and I feel like with writing things down, it helps you clarify who you are. And if you ever lose track of who you are and your identity that you have, you're going to be able to refer back to things like your notes that allows you to analyze the things that truly need to be analyzed and thought about thoroughly, the things that need to be thought about. That is how I've been able to maintain um, some of my sanity at some points in my life, because I was able to reflect back to see the ways in which I was thinking and remind myself that I need to get back on track, right? And that is just the way that I have done it. Like I said, thousands of notes written down, so it's not like I just learned about this idea and then I just started speaking about it. This is something that I've applied time and time again. I've been doing this for, what is it, about 5 years now, and like I said, I've seen plenty of utility. So my thing is this, right? If you haven't done it, or if you have done it, I want you to leave it in the comments right now. If you haven't done any writing at all, let's just say since school, right? You don't write down any of your ideas. You don't pick up you don't pick up a pen. You never write anything down on paper. You never write in your notes on your phone, right? I want you to say, hey, I don't write. I want you to say that in the comments. If you're a person that does write, like I said, when you spontaneously get a good idea, I also want you to write down in the comments. Like I said, whether you're watching this or watching this live, let me know. Say I do write. All right, let's see what it says. Write down thoughts, ideas to do, and grateful for. It's surprising to see how much you get done. Exactly, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And yeah, there's, like I said, there's been plenty of things that I needed to clarify within my life, um, or within my head, that I need to write down. And like I said, I'll give you some of these examples. I'll give you some right now. This is a huge one as well. And like I said, whenever I'm falling off, this is one of the things that puts me back onto the route that I need to go ahead and proceed with. This is going to be what my next moves are, in order, in actual timely order of what I need to do and how I need to do it and how I need to achieve it, right? Now, I could easily have that in my mind. I could easily think, you know what? One of the next things I need to do is whatever, right? I can easily think about that. Or I could have something that I could rely back onto in the moments of when that thought is no longer in my own head, when it's in the cache files in the back of my brain, right? If I was able to write something down like that, I'm able to refer back to it. Like I said, now, can you refer back to an idea and a thought you had? Yeah, you can. You can. But let's just say your brain, just like everybody else's brain, is not as reliable as a notepad at times, right? That's just what it is, right? I'm not saying you can't remember it. I'm saying all the good ideas that you have, all the great thoughts that you have, you're not going to remember all of them. Unfortunately, you're not going to remember all of them. So what do you need to do within that? If you want to maintain those certain good ideas, you write them down for sure. Another thing that I needed to clarify with myself, and this is something that I would recommend all people to do as well, is how do I want my life to be like? Write these things down. This is important. Like I said, now I can think to myself, say, you know what? I want my life to be like this. I want to have these things. I want to do this for my family. Or you could write it down. You could track it. You could make sure you check these things off later down in the future, right? I've written down how I want my life to be like, in very, very clear detail, right? Because those things need to be thought out, or you're going to just be living a life that you don't want to live, right? The clearer you are with yourself and with what you write down, the better you're going to be, the more capable you are going to be when it comes to achieving these certain things, right? That's just what it is. And another one that I've written down that I felt like I personally needed to be clarified for myself. This is going to be where my credibility comes from, right? Same thing. I can think about these things all day. You know what? Maybe I'm a young guy. You know, there's gonna be people that are watching me. What makes me reliable? What makes me credible? What makes me somebody worth listening to? Right? Now, I could easily think of things that come off the top of my head, or I can write these things down, think about these things thoroughly, reflect back on it. Let's just say weeks, months, years from now, and add to that list. Right? Or I could just say, you know what? Let me think of an idea. Let me think of an idea, and then it just being as simple as an idea. Right? the the essence of you being able to expand on an idea, a good idea you believe that you had, is that's one of the biggest benefits. That's one of the most beneficial things you could possibly do ever. And that's something that I love. I love with this podcast because it allows me to expand my ideas. It allows me to expand my thoughts. Like, for example, somebody could have a superficial thought like, um, let me think of one. Let's just do this. Let's just do this, right? Let's just say the topic. This is just random, of course. Let's just say men and women can't be friends, right? Let's just say you have that thought, but you don't have any like supporting evidence to why that would be suggested, right? And the reason why this would be some type of utility to be able to expand on this idea is because, let's just say, like I said, let's just say you have that idea. Now you're able to expand on thoughts beyond just that one idea for your reasons of actually why you believe, right? Or what you think, right? Now, when it comes to, like I said, here's the utility of writing, right? Now, let's just say you get into a conversation with somebody down the line, right? And this random topic that you had already thought about comes up within conversation. Now, when it comes to approaching the conversation, don't you think the person who's written these things down, who has thought about these things previously, is going to be much more well equipped to go ahead and handle the conversation when the conversation does come up? I would personally think so, right? That's how it is within my life. I've made over 159 podcasts now, right? About a bunch of ideas that I truly have thought about, expanded my ideas on, and then given to the world, right? And like I said, when any of these topics come up within conversation, I am more than equipped to handle and engage within any conversation that I want to go ahead and engage in. And that has brought me plenty of utility. Now, when it comes to these certain things, let's just say somebody asks you a question about yourself. If you have it thought out, let's just say it doesn't even come to mind immediately when they thought about it, but or immediately when they asked it. You could right then and there refer back to what you've already written down. Or hopefully, this is the hopeful scenario, you're able to think about it so much, like I said, obviously write it down into your notes, and then you're going to be able to speak it to that person more elaborately than literally almost anyone would be able to. If they ask that same question to 50 people, your answer potentially could be the most detailed and well spoken answer out of all those answers. And that's personally what I would like to achieve within this life. If somebody were to ask me a question, and it's a question that I've already thought about and already had beliefs about, I would love to be able to expand and give an answer that is a lot more elaborate and a lot more interesting than what most people are willing to offer. That most people can't offer at all, right? That's just me personally. Like I said, I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty good to me, right? And with that being said, I'm gonna read you a few more things that I have written down. And of course, I'm not getting too in detail with these things, but I just want to give you the structure, the general idea that I've expanded my own thoughts on. Right. Another one of these things, which I do believe needs to be written down for a lot of people because truly they're misguided. This is going to be my personal value hierarchy, right? And the reason why I needed to write this one down is because you must analyze, what do you truly value within this life, right? Because there's a lot of people that'll tell you, you know what, I value this, or they'll make it seem like they value that, and then they put it over other things that they value actually more than that because they're being misled, right? So for the example that I'll use with this one is a lot of people value money. They value money over everything. They value money over the character that over their character, right? They value money over the truth. They value money over being a good moral person, right? They set aside their values for money, right? I don't believe in that clown world personally, right? That's why like I said, that's why I have this podcast. I could be making much more engaging and entertaining content. I could easily be doing that. But the reason I'm not is because it's not what I value, right? I could be easily making a lot of money on here just acting like a clown. Easily. But that's costing my character. That's costing the reputation that I want to uphold. That's costing my own personal identity, right? So what do you value, right? That's another thing that I've written down. My value hierarchy in order of the things that I value. What do I value first? And like I said, I asked that question, or I clarified that question with myself because I wanted to see, where does money land for me? And it's like 15 plus if I'm not mistaken. It's like 15 or 20, something like that. But like I said, maybe you're a person that says, you know what, I'm gonna do anything for the money, whatever. I'm chasing the bag, whatever. If you write down, if you're a healthy person that's healthy minded, right? If you write down your value hierarchy, you'll begin to see how little you truly value money. Because there's so many more important things than money. Of course, I don't want to get off on this tangent, but for the sake of the conversation, right? What do you value, right? What does your value hierarchy look like? Like I said, in order, what does it look like, right? Another thing that I have written down, and like I said, I've been clear, very very clear, and clarified it within myself. And this is going to be a topic that I make eventually. I don't think I've made it yet, but this is going to be the most important skill that will reap me the most benefits within this life. This is the skill that I have found interest within. This is the reason for this podcast. This is for the reason in which every single which way I move. And the little things like that, little ideas that you have, right? For example, this podcast was an idea at one point. I wrote it down, I expanded on it later, right? And then I brought it into the real world, and now you're watching right now, right? You can do these things. You can do these things and maybe even do more than I can, right? But you will never know unless you write these things down. Because if you don't write these things down, then like I said, they're just a thought that you had. They're an idea that they're a brilliant idea that you had, but you didn't expand. You didn't capture that idea. With writing, you capture ideas, and that's the way that I look at it, right? The way that I look at thoughts is you almost have this invisible thought cloud above you, right? And you're able to pull certain things from these clouds. And when you meet new people, when let's just say you're friends with certain people, that cloud still exists, and they're able to influence this cloud, right? With that being said, if you're able to capture some of these ideas that you believe to be genius, or like I said, brilliant ideas or thoughts, right? Now you have something that not a lot of people have. You have a lot of valuable ideas written down that you've thought about and potentially have expanded on. Most people don't have any of those. They just have ideas that come and go. Now, do you understand how that would be one of the biggest separators that potentially can be when it comes to conversation and just being a person in general? You're gonna be able to properly defend yourself if you have these things written down, whatever these things are, right? The more well written you are, the better you are at not only being able to get ideas and get new ideas, but to be able to defend the ones that you truly believe in. A lot of people have never even thought that deep, so therefore their argument and their conversation just goes as far as that, not that deep. A lot of people are not even capable of having super elaborate conversations just based off of the fact that they don't have anything truly thought out. They believe everything that they're told, right? That's gonna be huge. That's gonna be a huge separator right there for sure. And I'll give you one more, and then I'm gonna actually speak on things that I've actually personally written, on ideas that like I said, ideas that I've came up with just by living my day-to-day life. But the last thing that I truly need to clarify for myself, and like I said, it's going to be different for every single person. Maybe there's certain things that I needed to clarify that you didn't need to clarify, or maybe something that you already had personally clarified, right? This is going to be the challenges of my apprenticeship. This is another one that I've spent time and time and time thinking about and adding to and elaborating on. And like I said, I can't. I don't. Do I really want to get into? Essentially, apprenticeship. If I can explain it real quick. Apprenticeship is basically something that is obviously before you become a master, right? This is something that a lot of people are in, especially people that are around my age. You are probably in your apprenticeship phase in some type of capacity, whether it's learning a new skill, starting a new business, learning and developing a trade, whatever it is. You're pretty much an apprentice, right? There's going to be years that go by where you make a ton of progress that no one will see, right? That is the apprenticeship phase in short. Now, there's going to be challenges that come that you will need to deal with in order to become a master at anything, right? Maybe it's eliminating certain ways of being. Maybe it's adopting a new personal identity, whatever it is for you. Like I said, I personally have my own challenges that I need to deal with when it comes to that in order to elevate to a person that gets plenty of recognition. With that being said, I've thought about these things for my personal self, right? That is what I recommend for you guys to go ahead and do, right? I had thought about these things for a minute now. I had written them down and I was able to elaborate on those things, think them out very, very thoroughly. And now you kind of understand how my mind works when it comes to utilizing notes, right? So my thing is this, right? If you don't have anything written down that you think about, I'm not going to say your thoughts are useless, but they're damn near useless. You can't refer back to them. You can't expand and add to them. How are you going to be a more articulated person? And because I believe that's something that I want to be, right? I want to be a person who's well thought out and well articulated, right? And I feel like most people would probably agree with that, right? They want to be competent to an extent. They want to they don't want to be a person that is shy. They don't want to be a person that, when it comes to conversation, the conversation ends because you're not able to add to it. Nobody wants to be that person. And the way to avoid that is to have ideas, right? Regardless, like I said, maybe you watched a video, you had an idea based off of the video, and then it was just that, and then you moved on to the next video. Or you could watch the video, get a great idea from the video, take it, think about it for a little bit, add it to your notes, right? Write down the things that you think about when it comes to this idea. Spend, let's just say 3 weeks. 3 weeks goes by, you go back, you reread your notes, you say, you know what, I want to add to this because I've thought about more things since then. You add to it, right? Now you understand, like I said, you see the difference in the brain from the person that never writes anything down from the person that does write things down, right? And off the rip, I can with having conversation with people, I can tell how thought out your ideas truly are because mine are thought out, right? Because I've spent the time, I've done what is required to expand on your personal ideas, on the things that I think about, right? So I can recognize when somebody's also the same type of way. Maybe they've had the same type of conversation, right? But a lot of it comes down to whether they were able to write down their ideas or not, right? Like I said, I'm gonna give you some of the things that I've written down, and I do believe these things to be better than the average person, in my opinion. You tell me what you think. Like I said, if there's any comments or questions you have regarding anything that I'm mentioning on today's podcast, definitely leave it in the comments. If you guys have any questions when it comes to writing or the ways in which I write or what I write about, leave it in the comments for sure. Like I said, whether you're watching this or watching this live, your contributions are more than appreciated. All right, so the first one that I have, this is something that I came up with, I think, today. This is going to be, in order to get ahead, you need to overcome. Right now, I could have made an entire podcast off of this, right? And a lot of these things, I have a lot of ideas that I probably will never even touch on on the podcast, right? These are just things that I've had that I needed to write down, right? But like I said, a lot of the podcast ideas are obviously things that I thought about, elaborated on, referred back to, whatever. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna repeat it one more time, and like I said, I do believe this is profound in my opinion. In order to get ahead, because everybody wants to get ahead. Nobody wants to be average. Nobody wants to be below average. Everybody wants to be ahead, right? But in order to get ahead, you need to overcome. You need to overcome many different things within this life. You need to overcome yourself. You need to overcome certain people. You need to overcome certain obstacles that you will have. You need to overcome certain problems that will eventually come up within your journey. You're going to need to overcome. That's the only way to get ahead, right? So that was the idea that I had, right? Another one. This is one that I've written down, and also follow me on Threads. If you want to know my personal account, my personal Instagram account is going to be lifeofachamp._, right? It's going to be the same thing for Threads as well. That's where you see a lot of my writing that I don't really post anywhere else except on Threads. Another one which, like I said, I had maybe I think earlier this week. This one's going to be, let curiosity guide you in your conscious learning journey, right? A lot of people are curious, and if you're not curious, then you're a broken person, in my opinion. But yeah, here's the thing: in order to maintain any type of competence and actual progression, you're going to need to be curious. So yeah, let your curiosity guide you on your conscious learning journey. Seek what's important and lasting rather than what's negatively alluring and fruitless. Learn the values to stand on and expand your mind. That is what I had written down. Like I said, I want to know what you guys think about these ideas, but that's just one that I had. So like I said, there's a lot of things right there, but for whatever reason they came to me at the same time, right? So I'll break it down, right? Let curiosity guide you in your conscious learning journey, right? Basically, if you don't have curiosity, how are you going to ever get far? How are you going to ever progress within this life if you're not curious about certain things, and especially about learning as well? That is something that I believe to be also one of the most important and essential skills to self-improvement is curiosity, right? I'll give you that. I'll give you another one. And then I have seek what's important and lasting rather than what's negatively alluring and fruitless, right? So basically breaking that down, society's giving you this idea that there's going to be certain things that are worth pursuing or worth having that are truly not worth having, that are actually hindering to your life, right? Those are what I would deem to be negatively alluring or fruitless. So this could be hookup culture. This could be living for the now, essentially living for the now instead of living for the future, right? Developing yourself for the future. This is going to be cashing out right now, right? And like I said, seek what's important and lasting rather than what's negatively alluring and fruitless, right? There's a lot of things that seem very, very appealing from the outside, right? But when you actually are involved within it, it truly doesn't bring you any type of satisfaction or fulfillment. So with that being said, you should probably seek what's important and lasting because those things actually last. Nani, appreciate you for stopping by. All right. And then the last part of that, right? Learn the values to stand on and expand your mind, right? That pretty much goes without saying. A lot of people need to be clear on the values. And another thing that I've clarified for myself, right? The values that I have, the standards that I have, the boundaries that I will implement within every interaction that I will have with anybody, right? Most people don't have any of these things written down. That is what makes me a more articulated person than some people, right? Now, if you're clear on these things, if somebody were to um, approach you within a conversation and you had these, let's just say it comes at you with disrespect, right? Unintentional disrespect. Now, if you don't have your boundaries clearly thought out and, like I said, for me, written out, then you might just put up with that disrespect. But that's not me personally, right? I've written down my boundaries. I've written down what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, right? So when it comes to that interaction, right? When it comes to that situation that I get disrespected in, or maybe I need to implement a boundary, right? Um, I'm able to healthily bring up my own boundary and say it within conversation instead of just getting disrespected and just letting it be, right? There's something to be said about the people who are able to in moments where it might be most people might fold, most people might not be able to let out what needs to be let out. Being able to be a person that truly has thought about this potentiality of this happening, and therefore is going to be well equipped when it comes to that certain situation instead of just letting it be what it is, right? Writing is going to be one of these things that is going to help you time and time again, right? I can't stress the importance enough because it's truly important. KJ, appreciate you for stopping by, man. If you're just getting it right now, I'm going to need you to rewatch the beginning of this podcast from start to finish, right? Obviously, maintain the live right now, watch the live right now, but rewatch this podcast, man. Worth your time. All right, the next one, like I said, I'm giving you some things that I've personally written down that I've had an idea about that I've written down because I believed it to be so profound. Right, the next one is going to be become the product of what you want people to see you as. It's a simple concept to talk about, but an even harder task to implement. Right? Obviously, like I said, it speaks for itself, but I'll break it down for y'all, man. Become the product of what you want people to see you as. Right? That, like I said, that is something that I could say as simple as I possibly can, right? But let's just say, for example, you want people to see you as a confident, funny person. You must develop yourself to be a confident person who's able to also be funny, right? Now that's very very simple, but you also need to be clear with the type of person that you want to be, right? One way I did this is by writing, right? One way you can do this is by writing, right? Become clear on the person that you want to be, right? And more importantly, for people to see you as, because quite frankly, you can have your own internal identity that's built for yourself, but when it comes to social interaction, you definitely want to be, you definitely hopefully want to be in control of what people see you to be. If that makes any sense, right? And you are very much in control of these things, so therefore you must act like you are in control of these things. And like I said, it's a simple concept to talk about. Obviously, I'm talking about on today's podcast, right? Like I said, you could talk about all day the ways in which you want to be, and you can think about all day the ways in which you want to be. Obviously, you're going to need to implement them. And like I said, the implementation is much harder than the actual thought itself, but nonetheless, you will not have any implementation. You will not be able to achieve it or do it at all unless you're very, very clear with it. Simple as that. And then the last one that I will give to you guys today before I go ahead and wrap this podcast up, like I said, another thing that I've written down that I believe to be very profound. I mentioned on a previous podcast before, this is going to be acquiring and exchanging knowledge is one of the most powerful currencies that does exist. Simple as that, right? You hearing this podcast, I can potentially give you something that will affect the rest of your life unconsciously, right? Acquiring, like I said, all I do with this podcast is I try to give the people as much as I possibly can when it comes to the information that I wish I had when I was younger. That's the reason for this podcast. That's the reason for this podcast, right? And with that being said, the reason why I found it to be super super beneficial and super super powerful when it comes to the currency that can be exchanged is because I'm a witness. I'm a victim of this in the best way possible, of course, where I've been able to learn from a lot of people, right? And also been able to um, exchange the knowledge, which I do believe is important, right? I acquired it essentially, right? You watching this, you're hopefully acquiring something that you haven't had before, maybe you haven't thought about in this specific way, or maybe you just needed to hear it from me, right? But also, acquiring it is one thing, right? You can acquire all the knowledge in the world, but if you're not able to give it back, then you're not being as useful as you possibly can be, right? So I personally spent the last 5 years of my life dedicating it to try to better myself in every single aspect of life. And with that being said, I've acquired a lot of knowledge, right? A lot of knowledge that you wouldn't get unless you were in that same position that I was in, unless you spent the time and did the work, right? And with that being said, the reason why I made this podcast is because, like I said, exchanging knowledge along with acquiring it is the one of the most powerful currencies that does exist. So this interaction that we're having right now, you listening to me right now, you exchanging me giving you the knowledge that I have acquired, and you acquiring the knowledge that I'm giving, right? That is one of the most powerful currencies that does exist. Period, right? And I'm sure. Here's the thing. I'm sure you have observed other people, and you've talked to other people, and maybe something that they've said, or maybe something that you've heard in a video, has been some of the things that have changed your life, right? Changed the trajectory of your life just by listening to that person, just by hearing this thing, or just by having this conversation with this person, right? Like I said, it's all acquiring and exchanging knowledge. Therefore, that's why it's powerful, right? And I could also say, inspiring essentially is kind of doing the same thing essentially, but nonetheless, you get what I'm saying. But the entire premise of this podcast, and I'm going to review all these things, right? Writing is one of the most important skills and one of the most underrated skills when it comes to self-improvement. You must work on this time and time again because it is actually worth your time, right? It is going to be one of the biggest what is the word I'm looking for? Give me I just had this idea. It is going to be one of the biggest long-term investments you can possibly make, right? Writing and reading is two of the biggest long-term investments that you could ever possibly make within yourself, at least in my opinion. And like I had mentioned, writing is a very, very productive habit if you do it correctly, right? If you're able to write about things that are truly important, that truly gets you engaged and present, right? That's going to be very, very important. Because not only will you begin to analyze the way in which you think by writing down the thought that you had, but also you're going to be engaging in which you possibly can think by being able to analyze that idea and adding to it, right? You're going to be able to add to the idea that came into your mind, and that's very, very important. Um, so, like I said, not only where you have ideas, write them down, but you're able to expand them. They all work in tandem, and like I said, it's something that I'm gonna recommend time and time again. Um, and yeah, like I said, just by me saying that, not even having the rest of this podcast, right? That should be value enough. But like I said, there's gonna be plenty of other utility, and I've expressed that utility time and time again. But one thing I want to mention as well is I've talked to a lot of people, man, and I do believe that a lot of people have really, really good ideas and really good thoughts, right? That is what I truly believe, and hopefully you can believe the same thing if you've had good conversations with the right people, right? But with that being said, the parts in which the most interesting people, in my opinion, have lacked is they haven't written this down. They have no way to track the things that they've thought about, the things that they've added, the things that the ideas that have came into their mind. They have no way of doing that. But if they were, maybe they'd be able to partake in one of the most powerful exchanges that does exist, which is acquiring and exchanging knowledge, right? But if you're unable to do this, then you're a person that just has thoughts that come and go just like everybody else. That's just the way that I see it. But like I said, the people that I found the most interesting, they only lack in the writing aspect, right? You must be able to bring your ideas to life, right? Bring them into the real world instead of leaving them within your thoughts. Because like I had mentioned before, thoughts come and go. You have good thoughts, you have bad thoughts, but they all come and go unless you bring them into the real world. Um, yeah, like I said, the way that I would recommend it, like I said, you can write down, whether it's actually writing down in your notes or whether it's writing it in your actual phone, right? That's what I do personally. Um, but the way that I would recommend it is you don't have to implement this as like a habit that you do every single day, even though there's probably plenty of utility right there. I would recommend doing it. This is what I do, and I'm going to recommend only what I do. I recommend writing down ideas when you have the idea. Let's just say you're doing a mundane task like taking out the trash, and while you're taking out the trash, this idea comes to you. It's a very, very profound idea, and maybe it potentially could help people out. You write down that idea, right? Like I said, whenever it comes to you, that is where you must write, right? And I do believe this. Some of the ideas that you do have, it is going to be well worth your time to write that idea down because it's probably going to be more important than anything you're probably doing right now. That's just what it comes down to, right? That is what I personally experience within my day-to-day life. If I have a good idea, it's about a 9 out of 10 times it's probably best for me to go ahead and write down that idea and put a pause to literally anything else that I'm doing, right? That's just what it is. That's just what it is. And then yeah, like I said, write things down, add to it, man. That's the name of the game, man. That's the name of the game. And also, like I said, I would also recommend writing down when you actually have the time. Let's just say you're not occupied by doing something else. Let's just say you have this moment of, and this has happened to me plenty of times, where you have just a flow state, just an abundance of ideas that keep coming in, right? I remember the other day, I was laying down on my bed. I was getting up for the morning, and I was laying down, and I just had like 30 ideas just come to me all at once. And then I had to dissect them within my own mind, and I eventually actually wrote these things down. And like I said, that those are going to be those moments in where you have the flow state, right? If you're a person that thinks a lot and actually applies your thoughts and also, writes your thoughts down, you're going to have moments like I did when I was laying down, right? Where a thought came to me, and then, like I said, damn near 30 more came to me also at the same time, and I was able to, like I said, utilize that and write these things down because I found them to be of the utmost importance. So that's what I went ahead and did. Like I said, you can do that, and you could do more than that. That's all I'm going to say. And like I said, there's going to be plenty of topics you can write about, right? You can write strictly to only benefit people. You can strictly only write to benefit yourself. Clarify things about yourself. Clarify the identity that you have. Clarify the identity that you want to uphold. You can do all these things, right? And all these things are worth your time, right? That's what it comes down to, right? I'm not going to recommend anything to you that's truly not worth your time. This is worth your time because, like I had mentioned before, it is going to be one of the best long-term investments that you could ever place within yourself. And obviously, like I had mentioned, the utility of being able to refer back, right? Let's just say 10 years from now, you wanted to observe the ways in which you were thinking when you were this age right now. The one way you'd be able to do that, and the only way you'd be able to do that, is if you had actual documentation that would be written down at that time. Maybe it's in the form of ideas, maybe it's in the form of notes, maybe it's in the form of a podcast, right? You never know what you can do, but nonetheless, that's what I would recommend time and time again, because, like I said, it's personally helped me out, right? I have over 1,000 notes written down within my notes app on my phone, and like I said, it's helped me clarify a lot of the ways in which I deem to be of the utmost importance to my personal self, right? And from there, I was able to, like I said, exchange it with you guys, right? So that is pretty much what I have to say for today's podcast. If you took any utility from this podcast, make sure you go ahead and leave a like. Also, subscribe if you're already not subscribed, or follow if you already haven't followed, right? Like I mentioned, I'll give you guys the plug, man. Make sure you go ahead and follow me on TikTok, just Life of a Champ podcast on TikTok. Make sure you go ahead and follow me on Twitch and Rumble as well. Can you elaborate a little on my prior question? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Do you follow a writing format? I use what I call a parking station, where I put all my thoughts that I want to revisit. No, not particularly. No, I don't have particular structure, I would say, when it comes to the ways in which I note. Right? You can implement some type of structure if you do believe it's actually going to help you out. Me personally, my mind is very, very how do I want to put it? Random. Let's just say that my mind's very random, so therefore I don't particularly have any type of structure to go based off of. I just kind of go with. I'm just going with the wind, honestly, with it. So, like I said, you can implement structure if you would like. That is not personally something that I personally do. I'm sure that has some type of utility. But yeah, I just have it written down. I just create a new note for it. If that's any structure at all, I what is it? I separately put my notes in order. Let's just say that I have a separate note for every single idea I have. So that's the way that I would do it. Now, other than that, I pretty much said everything I need to say for today's podcast. If you took any utility, like I said, make sure you go and leave me a follow and subscribe. Leave a like on the video. Like I said, if you were watching this, if there was a point that I made that was very profound to you, definitely leave it in the comments. But other than that, this was episode 159 of the Life of a Champ podcast, talking about one of the most important skills when it comes to self improvement, right? Like I said, probably not one that a lot of people are going to expect, but nonetheless, one of the most important ones that I had found for my personal self and within my own personal journey. Yeah, like I said, I already gave y'all the plug. I'll leave you guys off with the podcast motto. Fellas out here, man, we don't just work around here, man. We outwork. So make sure y'all working these motherfuckers because you know that I am, right? Um, but other than that, I'll be having a music live stream here soon. I don't know when. I might do it tomorrow. I might do it tonight. I don't know yet. But I'm trying to figure it out. If there's any improvements that you think that I could make on this podcast, definitely let me know. If there's any guests that you want to see back on or topics that you want me to talk about or revisit, definitely leave it in the comments for sure. I'm up for taking criticism. I'm up for taking suggestions when it comes to improving the content that you do go ahead and consume. So definitely let me know in the comments. Other than that, stay tuned for the next podcast. It's going to be on Tuesday. I might actually restructure the ways in which the podcast days are ran. So if there's a specific day that you think works best for you as well, definitely leave it in the comments as well. But other than that, you guys have a good rest of your night. Like I said, stay tuned for the podcast on Tuesday. And like I mentioned before, make sure y'all work at these motherfuckers, man, because you know that I am. Come on now. You know what time it is, man. Y'all have a good night.